2021 is the 40th anniversary of the character of Rogue in the X-Men from Marvel Comics. The character has been a fan favorite now going into her 5th decade of existence. The character has been loved in comics, in animation, and underutilized in live action so far. So strap on your seatbelt because today we're going to go over the origin and the history of Anna Marie Lebeau, the untouchable mutant, also known as Rogue. Welcome back to Comic Power. I'm your host, Comic Killer 72, and welcome to the first episode of a new series called Because Comics, where I go over the origin and the specific history of a particular character. And since it's the 40th anniversary of Rogue, why not her? As always, be sure to subscribe to this channel and click on the bell for notifications so you don't miss anything. Now here we go. The character made her first appearance in Avengers Annual number 10 back in 1981, and her creation is credited to Chris Claremont and Michael Golden. She is a mutant with the power to absorb someone's life force by skin-to-skin contact. So if she touches you, she could drain your physical strength, even your memories. If you have superpowers, she could temporarily take those too. But it's an involuntary process that she can't control. So if she touches anyone, she could wind up killing them. She's a teenage girl growing up in the deep south in Mississippi, and her name is Anna Marie. And her powers first kick in when she's kissing her boyfriend around the age of 15, and she nearly kills him and makes him comatose. And from the beginning, you can see that this is not a gift. This power is a curse. I'm showing you clips from the X-Men movie that was released in 2000, and they do a great job of showing this initial origin. The father of the boy that she put in a coma organizes a mob to come to their house and try to kill her. Rogue's father is able to hold off the mob so she can run away. So basically, she's an unintended teenage runaway who has to survive going from truck stop to truck stop. She's eventually discovered by a woman named Raven, aka Mystique, who is the leader of the new Brotherhood of Mutants. She takes young Anna Marie in and lets her know that she's not alone, she's a mutant, there's others like her with strange powers. Mystique and her partner Destiny take on the role of surrogate mothers to Anna Marie, and they start calling her Rogue. They educate her that humans will never accept mutants for who they are, and radicalize her for the cause of mutant liberation by any means necessary, which includes terrorist acts. She gets upgraded to the power set that we know by coming in contact with Carol Danvers, who was known as Miss Marvel at the time, who's now known as Captain Marvel today. She's able to absorb powers from Carol Danvers, which include super strength and flight. But the contact is so prolonged that Rogue is able to absorb these powers permanently. And this is where Avengers Annual number 10 picks up, where Spider-Woman finds a Jane Doe who is comatose, and the Jane Doe is identified as Carol Danvers, who's been missing for a long time. They take her to Professor X, who's able to probe her mind, and is basically a blank slate. She eventually makes a full recovery and becomes the superhero named Binary in issue 164 of the X-Men. She eventually becomes Miss Marvel again, and then gets upgraded to Captain Marvel in 2012, and that's the character we know now that's been in the movie since 2019. As I mentioned before, Rogue draining the powers of Miss Marvel are now permanent. Yes, she does have cool new powers like flight and super strength, but she also has Carol Danvers' memory. It's about to drive her insane because she can't tell the difference between her memories and Carol Danvers' memories. So this is the point where Rogue becomes disillusioned about her mission with the new Brotherhood. Their missions are becoming more extreme and more cruel, and she's dealing with this personal issue of what's going on in her head. And although she loves her surrogate mom Mystique very deeply, she just can't take it anymore, and she has to leave. She comes crawling to Professor X and denounces everything she ever did with the Brotherhood and asks for his help. The professor invites her to the school and makes her a conditionary member of the X-Men. This causes a schism within the X-Men, and led by Storm and Nightcrawler, they almost all walk out and quit over the potential addition of Rogue to the team. But the professor is adamant about adding her to the team, and he convinces the other X-Men to stay, but very grudgingly, of course. She shows up for the wedding of Wolverine and Mariko, but he's not ready to trust her yet. Mystique tries to bring her back into the Brotherhood, and although Rogue loves her surrogate mom, she's like, nah, I'm good. The X-Men are my new family. So now that she's on the team, two major things happen with this character at this time. Number one, she gets a redesign from comic legend Jim Lee. Let's face it, her original design makes her look like a 40-year-old waitress named Flo. This Jim Lee design, which is her most famous ever, gives her longer hair, keeps the white streak in it that she's known for, gives her a softer green outfit with some gold in it, and of course the jacket over the top of it. This is just a sample of some of the many different looks the character has had, but the 1990s Jim Lee version is probably the most popular ever. She looks much younger and a whole lot sexier. The other decision they made to advance the character is to make Gambit her love interest. He's a very popular character within the X-Men canon himself. He's that Cajun mutant with the checkered past. The character's real name is Remy Lebeau. He makes his first full appearance in comics in X-Men number 266 in 1990. His creation is credited to Chris Claremont and Jim Lee. He has the mutant power to manipulate kinetic energy. The character had only been around for 2 years when they decided to make him a core X-Men member for the animated show. But he was the immediate fan favorite when he was first introduced anyway, so it was a good decision to put him on the team and deciding to make him a love interest for Rogue, who needed one. So this relationship that really started in the animated series crossed over into the actual printed books, and it became a very good storyline for both of these characters. They kind of understand each other both as mutants and being from the deep south, with her from being from Mississippi and him from being from Louisiana next door. Marvel did eventually have these characters actually get married. She's now known as Anna Marie Lebeau. Her maiden name was never given in comics. This happens in X-Men Gold issue number 30 when Colossus and Kitty Pryde are supposed to be getting married, but Kitty backs out at the last minute, and just like in a soap opera, Gambit decides to ask Rogue to marry him, and she says yes. This storyline was published back in 2018. To keep up with these characters as a married couple, be sure to pick up the miniseries Mr. and Mrs. X, which also came out in 2018. Also check out the miniseries Rogue and Gambit from 2018 as well. It's a 5-issue miniseries. There are so many great storylines about the character of Rogue over her 40-year history in Marvel Comics that if I try to talk about all of them, it would be a 3-hour video. But one of my favorite redesigns and storylines for Rogue is Savage Land Rogue. The Savage Land in Marvel Comics is a prehistoric land that's undiscovered in Antarctica. It first appeared in X-Men number 10 way back in 1965. And because comics, she's transported there and has to learn how to survive. It's documented in issues 269 and issue 274 of the X-Men. For some people, they believe that the storyline was created just so they could get the sexy Rogue character in as little clothes as possible. And they're probably right. It is pretty gratuitous, isn't it? But comic fans weren't exactly complaining about this now, were they? Marvel went even further with their special swimsuit editions. I don't have much to say about it other than it was pretty interesting, but it's something that Marvel wouldn't do today because it would be viewed as exploitive. Marvel put out this edition once a year for 4 years straight between 1992 and 95, and Rogue is the only character that rocked the cover twice in 2 different years. I'm sure that was based on fanboy demand. I'm sure this was intended to be all for fun as a dig at the swimsuit edition of Sports Illustrated, but it's something that needed to be retired and stay retired. Don't come back to this, Marvel. It's probably not a good idea. Just let fans on pages like DeviantArt.com come up with their own ideas. Let's take another look at the animated series while we're here, which I mentioned started in 1992 and was a Saturday morning cartoon. And the X-Men were popular in comics among hardcore nerds that love this stuff like myself, but the animated series really made this bust out to the mainstream in a way it had never had before. Without me going on a rant, Fox did some really crazy stuff with the X-Men and took certain liberties in the live action movies, but the actual animated series was handled by Marvel themselves, and they did exactly what they were supposed to do in following the comics basically beat for beat. In the very first episode, we see the badassery of Rogue and Storm working together as a team, where they had to save a young mutant named Jubilee who's being hunted down by Sentinels at the shopping mall. In the movie version, Storm is pretty docile, a background character who's very depowered, and Rogue, they don't even use her in terms of her powers at all. She's just trying to get rid of her powers the whole movie and acts like a punk. Now compare that to the animated series where you see these characters are both powered up and they're kicking major butt like they're supposed to be. Don't let me go on a rant against Fox right now. We'll be here all day. The X-Men 1992 animated series is her most famous animated appearance. Some other animated highlights include X-Men Evolution, which ran from 2000 to 2003. Wolverine in the X-Men from 2009, where she looks like this. There's also an X-Men anime, which is not very well known in the United States, which came out in 2011. Rogue is not a primary character in here. She only makes a cameo. There's a deep archive of X-Men video games in which Rogue plays a major part as well. Shown in the crawl here is some of her appearances in the 2000s alone. I'll give you a full list within the description below. Of course, there's the movies where they gave her a decent debut in X-Men Part 1, but in X2 they failed to advance her character. In X3 they actually regressed the character and it was tragic. By the time you get to her 4th appearance in Days of Future Past, in the theatrical cut she's so insignificant they just gave her a little cameo role at the end. So yes, Fox dropped the ball on the use of Rogue in live action movies, which I'll talk about in a future video. Another significant event of the Rogue story is told in X-Men Legacy number 224, where Professor X learns how Rogue can control her powers for the first time. Her powers to absorb were involuntary at first, but now she's able to control them, and she proves it by kissing Gambit. With no ill effects, so she's now cured. She still has this power, but she can control it now. But overall, you can see that Rogue has been a significant player in comics themselves, the video games, the animation, and live action, even though the role was reduced. Now let's have some fun by showing some women interpreting Rogue in cosplay, and I'll be sure to credit them if the information is available to me. Music, please. That was an awesome job, ladies. Thank you for your contribution to the folklore that is Rogue. Now let's do a quick recap on the Rogue character. She seems to be just a regular teenage girl growing up in Mississippi, but her mutant powers of absorption kick in when she's kissing her boyfriend, which puts him in a coma. And she's traumatized because she can't have skin-to-skin contact with anyone ever again in the future. Now that it's known that she's a dangerous mutant, the father of the boy she put in a coma organizes a mob to try to come and kill her. So she's forced to become a runaway, living on the street in Mississippi and barely surviving. She's discovered by the shape-shifting mutant known as Mystique, who becomes a surrogate mother to her and radicalizes her to the ways of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Mystique weaponizes her power to devastating effects. Her most significant battle is where she drains the power of Miss Marvel, also known as Carol Danvers. And instead of temporarily getting Miss Marvel's powers, she's able to gain them permanently. But she also gains the memories of Carol Danvers, and she can't tell her memories from the Carol memories, and it's driving her insane. She decides to leave Mystique and the Brotherhood and goes to Professor X for help. He agrees to help her and puts her on the team, which gets a lot of pushback from the other X-Men who can't stand her, but eventually they come around and accept her to the team. She proves to be trustworthy, helpful in battle, and saves the life of Colossus and the love interest of Wolverine. She has an on-again, off-again relationship with the Cajun mutant Gambit, but they eventually get married. And Professor X is able to cure her from her powers being involuntary. She still has the power to absorb, but she can control it now. In 2021, the character shows up to the Hellfire Gala dressed like this. Now let's go over some key issues you need to know or have to understand a Rogue character. That starts with Avengers Annual number 10, released in 1981. It's the first appearance of Rogue. Then there's Uncanny X-Men number 158 from 1982. It's the first cover appearance of Rogue and her first appearance in the X-Men title. There's Rom Space Knight number 31 from 1982 as well, which is her third appearance. Another early appearance is Dazzler number 22, also from 1982. There's Uncanny X-Men number 171 from 1983, where she first joins the team. And then in the very next issue, she shows up for the wedding of Wolverine and Mariko, but he's not ready to trust her yet. She stars in her first 4-issue miniseries released in 1995. She stars in another 4-issue miniseries released in 2001, and she stars in a 12-issue maxi series which was released in 2004. Her Savage Land appearances are in issues 269 and 274 from 1990 and 1991. First appearance of her husband Gambit is in Uncanny X-Men number 266 in 1990. She gets cured of her absorption powers in issue number 222 of X-Men Legacy in 2009, and her and Gambit finally get married in X-Men Gold number 30 from 2018. And the character also has very impressive appearances in animation and video games. As I mentioned before, her live action movie appearance was pretty lackluster, but I'll talk about that in another video, I promise. Now it's time for you to sound off. Is Rogue one of your favorite X-Men characters? How high do you rank her? Which Rogue design do you like the most? Which animated version of Rogue do you like best? Do you dislike the movie version this as much as I hate? What is the best way to introduce Rogue into into the MCU? Should it be in a future Captain Marvel movie where she drains her powers like in the comics? Be sure to sound off in the comment section about all things Rogue. And once again, happy 40th anniversary to the Rogue character. I think she'll be just as popular 40 years from now. Thank you for watching Because Comics, where I go over the specific origin of comic book characters. As always, be sure to subscribe to this channel and click on the bell for notifications to make sure you don't miss anything. And be sure to share these videos on social media to help grow this channel. Until next time, this is Comic Killer 72 for Comic Power saying bye-bye.